Hi guys. Um, so as I said, we're gonna make this a really casual station, and it is summertime, so I'm wearing my summer dresses. I was actually eating my lunch, and something popped in my mind that I wanted to speak about. So I figure this is the way we kind of get YouTube going. Excuse me, as I'm. Hold on, let me take one more bite. I know that's silly, but it's real. I'm hungry. Hmm. So let's get started. One of the most common concerns that I hear from caregivers about medications at end of life. That's going to be our topic today. And so, in my experience, when you first come onto hospice, excuse me, you have been um, qualified by having two medical doctors say that based on the trajectory of your disease or condition, that it's likely that you have 6 months or less. However, many times people are in crisis, they're just getting out of the hospital, they look gravely ill, and so they are put on hospice. And many times we can discharge people once they go through that initial stage of being able to allow the nurse to assess the patient for a couple months and get a good feel on if they're hospice eligible or not. But back to the main thing that we were going to talk about. Boy, you guys, thanks for bearing with me because this is new to me. Um, and I'm not going to get it right every time. Medications. When your loved one has been signed up for hospice or you have been signed up for hospice and your nurse comes to do her initial assessment, she is going to start talking to you about medications that you've been taking probably for a long time. And what we know is that the system, if we are truly in our end of life stage, systems start to slow down. And a lot of the medications that we are taking are contraindicated at end of life. Let me give you a couple ideas here. First one is the diabetes medicine. Typically, as people move closer to transition, they start to lose their appetite naturally. And so they eat less, their intake is much less, they're not drinking as much fluid. Naturally, blood sugar will fall. So your hospice nurse is going to suggest that they come off some of these medications. And this does not in any way, shape, or form exacerbate death. It actually helps the patient because if we don't get people off of some of these medications, then they're going to have side effects like hypotension. And if you know anything about hypotension, it's not a pleasant thing to feel. The other one that is a very common one that we will encourage families and patients to consider coming off of are things like cholesterol medications. Those medications tend to be really hard on the liver, and it is a long-term sort of medication to keep cholesterol down. So it's a big pill. There's a pill burden with many of our patients that come on. They're on 5+ medications. So the cholesterol medication is one that you can easily come off of. You're not going to have any side effects from it, and it's not going to affect the end result. In fact, it's going to be easier because you're taking less pills. Another very common one that we end up discontinuing is blood pressure medication. Now, this is, of course, on an individualized basis, but the same thing happens with the diabetic uh, etiology that's going on in the system. The human system, the physical form, when you're not giving it nutrients and eating like you did before, your appetite decreases, you're not eating as much stuff, you're not drinking as much, your blood pressure will naturally come down. So your nurse is there to monitor you every week to make sure that your blood pressure is good. And if there's an indication that it's dropping, we're going to suggest that you come off of it. So that's one component of medications that I did want to talk about. The other one that I want to talk about real quick on here, and we will talk about it more in the future, but is when the hospice nurse recommends morphine. Yeah, did any of you guys feel like a little trigger there? So it is very common for people to be apprehensive about administering morphine at end of life. And I am going to be so transparent and honest with you. I get that because of what we have learned and the street drugs and all of that stuff. But your loved one or yourself, if taking morphine for, I'm going to tell you two things: pain, or guess what? Shortness of breath. It's a magical medication for that. If you are taking or considering taking morphine and you have a concern about addiction, that's one of the biggest ones that I would hear. I can promise you, if you are taking the medication as directed to ease your shortness of breath or pain, addiction is not an issue for you. And here's the bottom line: even if you have a history of addiction, we are here to help you. So our dosing and that sort of thing, we are going to monitor your medication. You're not going to be able to get away with taking too much medication at that point in time. And typically, when people are at that stage of life, their addictions, they're not they're not an issue at that point. Unfortunately, people that have severe addictions sometimes lose their life before they get on hospice. Anyway, that's my first intro. And how'd we do? And ask some questions. Like I said, this is so casual, as you can see, because that's the only way I know how to be. Please leave me some comments, questions leave some questions in the comment section, and like and share so that we can get this information out there. All right, you guys, thank you for joining me here on Sacred Crossings. Have a wonderful day.